on July 15th. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda?
So
Moved.
Motion by Felix,
Second.
second by Mr. Glavin. Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous vote. We'll start with the agenda, let's see. Moving on to the presentation agenda. Mayor's report?
No report.
Okay. Council report?
no
Felix?
report.
Deming?
No report, just wanted to update. Nathan Barrett's on his way, he should be here shortly.
Sounds good. Tisdale?
No report, thank you.
Mr. Glavin?
No report.
And I have no report. We'll move on to public agenda, citizen comments. We've got 45 minutes allotted. Anyone on the left-hand side, my left, would like to speak? Anyone on the right side? Anyone in the back? Peter? Moving on, we'll move to the policy agenda. Ms. Lucy, will you please read Resolution A?
Subject matter of the meeting is to discuss the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2020 budget.
Do I have a motion? Okay, because I don't have a resolution thing in front of me. Okay. Go ahead, Mayor.
Yeah, Madam President, I think you've got at least the revenue picture, along with the actuals from prior years. And of course, that's a load, and it's a number of things that, they're accounting as well as we could help with. But I think if we get through the revenues today, Dr. Tisdale and Nathan and whoever, we're actually taking a look at an easier, more concise way to look at the departmental budgets and from the expense side. And I would like to delay that as far as the departmental review. But get through revenues, I think that would be a good thing today.
I'd like to point out one thing, if I might. I have the CAFR with me, the audit from last year, the last fiscal year. On page 72 of this audit, we have a sheet called Statement of Revenues, Expenditures, and Changes in Balance. I think it's useful to point out that in that audit, it said that on a $60 million general fund budget, we came within $200,000 of hitting the revenue number. I think that says a lot about how good we're doing on estimating our revenues. The sheet that is before you has got actuals, audited actuals for 2 years, unaudited actuals for 2018. The fourth column is 2019 year to date. That's why it's not. That's why it's lower, because that's only through period 9, which means only through 75% of the year. And then the two right-hand columns are the current budget, 2019 budget, and the final column on the right is the proposed 2020 budget. I want to be sure that you have an understanding of what we've got. And there are 3 pages to that sheet, all the way to the back. If you look at the last page, we've still got the column headings. You'll see at the bottom the total general fund after transfers number. And you see the outcome, 2016, 2017 audited, 2018 unaudited, 2019 year-to-date. You'll notice that we're sitting at $46 million right now with a budget of $58 million with 3 months to go. And if you'll see on the again page, that last page back, you see what we're proposing for a 2020 budget is essentially a flat. We're essentially proposing a flat budget of 58 million and change, 595,000 worth of change actually for year 2020. So we feel very confident. We're not sandbagging there. There are some big ones. I think I should call your attention to the big ones that are there. Ad valorem tax. You look and see the movement of ad valorem tax. We're sitting at 6.7 million year to date with just 3 months to go, but really most of that comes in September. We're sitting on gaming tax at 13.7 million with a budget of 18.7. And we're sitting on sales tax at 9.3 million with a budget of 12.5. Those are all in line percentage-wise with getting us to across the finish line. but just barely. So I think our proposed budget for 2019, we're gonna come right up on that budget pretty tight, one way or the other, as we did the year before. And we're proposing a very similar 2020 budget to the council. Now, we're starting with revenue, as we should, because just like when you do your checkbook at home, before you start writing checks, you balance the checkbook to see how much money you got or are going to have. And we think our general fund for 2020 is going to be very similar to our general fund for 2019, based on the performance year to date for 2019. Are there any specific questions you might have about any parts of that revenue budget?
We'll start with Mr. Glavin. Got any?
Yeah, where does sale of assets or property go in the revenue? Does it go into the general fund if we? So where is that? Where does that go on this sheet right here?
Yeah, you'll see it on the last page back, sale of assets.
Last page.
0100048522, second from the top, sale of assets. And it's all over the place. I mean, in 2018, we sold $638,000 worth of assets. Year to date, we've only sold $50,500 worth of assets.
But it's $10,000. That's what I'm looking at here, right? $10,000. Is that accurate? You think that's an accurate assessment?
We don't have a list today of what we plan to sell in the next year. So that's just a wedge. We could put another number in there. We could make it 50. We could make it 100. But, you know, we don't really have a list of what we specifically want to sell.
It was on my mind too. There's a number of vacant lots and everything we have, and to assess, and there may be some, you know, if we can surplus that property and acquire some parking available, you know, that we could do. So if we're trading and selling, you know, I think we need to get that land on the tax rolls. If there's a, you know, a number of, how many properties do we cut every year?
72 properties in the city that we mow
So
that are city properties.
that may be, Kenny, that may be a way to kick those figures into the right direction. And again, that would add to the ad valorem, you know, as we get it off. But there are some, you know, I know we could use some additional parking at Snyder. We could use some additional parking at Gruich Center. And there's some property available. You know, we may want to play that game, sell some and buy some. Also cemetery, you know, FEMA and has indicated that if we find some more artifacts and those sort of things, that we need a place to go with them. And Peter, is Peter here? Might want to give an update on that inquiry there about the property on this right adjoining the Highway 90 possibility.
Well, we're looking for some expansion, but talking with Walt Rohde, I think we may be able to add that as part of the FEMA reimbursement project if we had to acquire additional
Cemetery
property.
lots.
So
There's
we've got
cemetery lots right here.
a possible participant in that, but we still have to do appraisals.
3,000.
The other thing is, I'm looking through here, building permits seem to be flat. I mean, with some of the development, downtown development, and all that kind of stuff, we don't anticipate the building fees to be higher. We're thinking they're going to be flat. I'm just asking the question.
No, that's a good point. You hear Jerry Creel's report every time he reports. He always talks about the increase in the amount of money he's taking in building permits. So you'll see where he is year to date.
The question I have, how does that translate to the ad valorem taxes? A lot of times the permits and how it's, you know, what's a revenue kind of permit might, you know, it might not get translated directly, but yeah, certainly something we need to look at. And the assessors and the tax collector needs to give us some help on what we could expect. If, you know, $3 million worth of development of building permits, and, you know, I don't know how that translates directly to ad valorem, but we need to ask that.
Building permits is on the first page in the second group of columns, and you'll see we had a budget We had 2018 actuals of $411,000 in building permits. To year-to-date, at 75%, we're setting up $311,000. We have a budget of 400 this year. We're maybe going to get there, so we budgeted 400 again next year. That we're not running ahead of budget this year. I mean, at 311 out of 400 with 3 months to go. So, I mean, so again, if my gut tells me that we ought to maybe have some more building permits next year, but my head says we're not getting there this year. So why would we get there next year? I mean, I think it would be a stretch goal if we were to bump it up above 400. We could.
All right, those were a couple of,
Those are
Things
both
that I
good
saw.
points. Those are both places where we may want to stretch a little bit.
Got anything
I've
else?
marked them.
not right now. Thank you.
Mr. Tisdale?
Yeah, if we could start at the top of the page on this revenue. Our ad valorem, you're looking at roughly, just in previous years, 17 and 18, the actuals, you're at about 7.1 million. We're looking at 7.4 million, so that we expect that to go up a little bit, right? And I would assume a lot of housing construction and everything, property, particularly in Ward 7, so that makes sense.
And you certainly could make the point that if we think ad valorem is going up, maybe the building permits ought to be going up too.
Right.
In talking with the folks at assessors, and I think they have submitted their final to the state tax commission. Their, what they're going to be sending out bills, and I think 3% is
Okay.
is aggressive.
Then you go down penalties and interest. That's the fourth entry, account number 4070. And then 16, 17, 18, you're roughly $250,000, give or take. And then this year we're up to 425, and then we're looking at dropping back to 260. What accounts for the increase?
We had a casino that owed about 4 years of back taxes that had a lawsuit against the county, their assessment. And they didn't pay it till it was settled. And so they paid a huge sum of prior year tax and penalties.
Can you find 3 or 4 more like that? Okay. Looking. Okay. Then let's see. If we look at advertising fees, typically around 2,000. This year, the actual so far 13,500, and we're predicting or looking to budget roughly 18.3. What accounts for the increase in advertising?
B News. B News, right?
Unless that's where you're dumping the B News money.
Okay, I'm just, like I say, I'm just eyeballing the history and trying
else would it
to
be?
figure out which ones might be outliers, and if so, why. Okay.
Maybe the bond,
Uh,
could be the bond book. I don't know. Possible.
Then we get to Mississippi. Okay, I'm down in the franchise tax area. Oh, well, that's only going to be about 4. That's, I mean, that.
No, that's not it.
No, that doesn't explain it all. It might be I don't think that's going to be much of that at all. Anyway, I'm just curious at this point, since we didn't get these till a few minutes ago. Then, what is local exchanges franchise tax? That's account number 4260. I noticed in 16 it was 123,000, then 140,000, it drops to 97,000. Looking at 95,000 a date, we're looking at 100,000. But I'm just curious, what is that?
That's a combination of a few franchises that we
Okay.
Southern Light is one.
Okay, yeah. So we have a number of franchises that we permit to operate in the city, and this is just a collection of those smaller, perhaps lesser-known ones. Okay. So let me go down here to, if we're looking at gaming, that's account number 4320 in the last section, the gaming tax. Historically, 17.4, 17.5, 17.7, to date, 13.7. We budgeted 18.7. Are we going to hit that number, 18.7?
Well, I commented earlier, we just had the latest month in, and for the month of June, we're
Up
200,000 below
Okay.
budget. So I think it's going to be, if we get there, it's going to be just barely.
Right, okay.
We pushed that one, that was a real stretch goal last year.
Right.
And that was our bet. Remember, we didn't know anything about sports betting yet, when
Yep.
we put that budget together.
Road sharing, county road tax sharing, 4334. Historically, it's kind of been up and down, and why does it vary? 25, 30, 40,000 a year? Is there do we get a percentage of some things, or do we ask less than what we get, or?
Well, we do these new shifts and stuff like that, and some of that funding comes from it.
Gotcha, okay. Okay, all right, thank you, Ken. And then other intergovernmental, that varies widely. Historically, 24.2, 42.5, 5.54, 21.4. This year, we're shooting for 40,000. We're not going to make 40,000, I don't think. Maybe we do. I don't know how those payments come in, but we're only looking at 5,000 for next year.
I don't know how to look at that. That is really, you don't know what's going to come in. And so it's everything that's outside. It's things that you didn't count on come intergovernmental. So,
It sounds like it's kind of odds and ends, this bits and pieces, and you have to put them somewhere, and it's going to vary. Okay, well, anyway, and looking at the current year revised budget at 33.7 and 2020 budget at 33.8, with the figures you have here proposed for 2020, you're up about 170,000, and that's an increase in revenue of 0.5%. So we're like the universe, we're still expanding. It's just, we're slowing down a little bit.
We did
Okay.
absorb, some things, coming back to gaming, looking at it this year, looking at the GGR, the gross gaming revenue, at least up a month ago, they were up 37 or $38 million of gross GGR, and that translates to kind of percentage. So they're doing better, and we did absorb about $1 million hit, when Scarlet Pearl came on.
I remember
So
that.
They jumped in and took about 75 to 80 million dollars of gross gaming revenue that was delivered. So I think we took that hit and kept on trucking, and we're trucking a little bit longer.
What else you going to do, right?
Well, we talked a little bit about sports book, and it's a little bit different than just gaming,
Right.
slots and so forth. We've got 8 sports books. So versus
And for some reason, I'm thinking the figure rattling around in my head was, what did we anticipate for sports book? Maybe at one time I think it was $250,000, but I think we bumped that up.
it's about 200,000.
Okay,
But, we did get a little bit of it in August, because that's when football season.
Right.
The only problem with that is that in August, everybody was making bets. It hit as revenue. When the ones that won, like George won a few bets, I won a few bets.
we already know George is a winner, Mayor. Stick to the topic.
But, that comes out as a loss, and that reduces what that initial August and September business was. But the excitement is still there, I believe. I think they're at least in Harris, putting up millions of dollars, as well as Bo Rivage, millions of dollars in their sports book. I think they're calling that the 406 Club, is what I understand. So they'll be translating into some revenue figures, so I think we're very conservative
The
in,
World
in,
Series coming up too.
in this it's modest increase in where we are with gaming revenue as well as just everything else.
Okay. I may have a question later. That's as far as I got, but we'll let everybody else go. I may have a question or two later. Thank you.
Mr. Deming?
Actually, I think the questions I had, Paul covered with regard to the gaming taxes. We can move forward.
Okay, Mr. Gaines? Mr. Lawrence?
The gaming, the sports book is going to add more and more money to the casinos, but it's going to hurt the casinos as far as the tables. When they bring the horses on and stuff like that, you're talking about something they're going to do every day all across the United States. And just like the Board of Advisors, they're not spending $700,000 to redo that room for nothing. They're going to make a ton of money, and that's going to bring a lot of money to the city.
That's right.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah, exactly. Their
Right.
marketing and conditions, it's a little bit
How much?
more complicated than sports betting, because their deals have to be made with a network of X amount of horse, so I mean, one varies from time to time. You look at the big plays, the Breeders' Cup and the four or the three other big places,
Yeah, they all have to go through somebody's system.
That's right.
To get those things,
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, there's just a lot of people just go there all day long now. I mean, there's a reason, and sports book's gonna be good. And when
It
you
already
get
is good. It
when you
already
get back into everything, I mean, you can go up there and bet on anything you want. I mean, even the soccer, with the girls in that thing, they was packing them places, people gonna watch it and bet on United States. So that's good for us. When the Saints involved, United States involved, it's good. Those are good things.
By the time we finish this process, we'll look at, again, August and the September estimation, from that component, as opposed to last year.
Yeah.
Because I guess the August will be, if we're up again in August, then that's a good thing, because all of that, there's a term for it. The money they took in was a win, but it's in lieu. So when somebody's going to win half the bet, so that's going to kind of tone down. But August and September will be an indication where we might be heavy or light in what we're talking about.
I just think it's gonna.
Year-to-date, we're sitting at negative 157,000 from budget.
You get to your number. Quit sweating everything. You sweat everything. You're a penny pincher. Quit sweating everything.
That's what keeps
That's the way it goes. Some they have good days, bad days, but I mean, that's the name. My biggest thing is, why is everything exactly the same? That's hard to believe. You got 2 years in a row and you got the same numbers.
Well, we're within 2%, what was it, 4%, I think, total.
Yeah.
On your ad valorem tax, everything, I mean, you got almost identical numbers. I mean, there's no way you're gonna stay the same. Say that again? Come up here where I can hear you. I know you've been talking, they can hear you over there, I can't. What about the pluses?
They're in
The
there.
pluses didn't overcome any of those numbers? We've been listening to the last 6 months in the paper how great Biloxi's doing, but you look at the paper, we ain't doing nothing. So somebody's giving the wrong reports here. Either we're doing great or we're not doing great. according to your numbers, we did see it in 2017, so I'm asking you how we lost that from 2017. These are your numbers, so I'm just saying, 2017, it's 19.5, right here. Yeah, 2017. We're talking about
Overall.
the first page, bottom line,
We increased it from 17 to 18.
You know?
About $700,000, didn't we?
yeah.
Huh?
But I'm just saying, so, that's what I'm saying, we're supposed to be doing so good and we're adjusting things down. I'm like you, I don't think over budget, I don't get you anything,
We were right
but a
on
bad
the
number.
You look at the actuals versus budget and expenses versus revenues, we've been doing well. You know, we've added to the cash balances the last 3 years in a row. But, you know, we're right in with the, you know, within cents of what our target was.
I mean, these numbers don't lie. I mean, why was it, the total from 2017 dropped to 2018? You dig in there and you see there are places, for example, in 2017 where we had over $1 million in donations. And we haven't come anywhere near that since. So there are things all through this budget that move the number around. I mean, but the fact is,
Mike, I think that was recoveries.
recoveries, yeah.
It was, and that's exactly right. You have one-time revenues that are affecting something, okay? And in those years, like, there was a year that we sold property for $1.2 million or whatever. Okay, that's affecting. But guess what? We don't have that next year. So we have recoveries for the fire.
It's not a recurring revenue, not a recurring revenue.
It's not recurring revenue. So we can only budget what is recurring revenue. I can't predict if there's going to be a fire out in the world. That we're going to sell a piece of property for $1.2 million. I don't see it right now. Somebody tell me that.
Well, that's why we put all them sales out on the TV. Let's sell across the street, let's sell. Somebody has an opportunity, if we sell them, fine. So the downtown district thing, we have nothing, received nothing from them, because that's all this year. So there's nothing from last year attached to any of that.
There's one big reason why our ending cash balance has grown in the last couple of years is because we budgeted conservatively and we were aggressive in holding down expenses. And that's allowed the city to grow its ending fund balance, which puts us in a much more stable position. That's what we're trying to do. That's why we try and budget conservatively and then be aggressive with expenses so that we don't end up with surprises.
No, we got 2 surprises in July. We've been killed in July. That's definitely going to hurt our taxes. Nothing to do with anybody. You know, with the bad weather and then the algae bloom. I mean, it's killed July already. And if you can't recover, you're already in July, you're done. So we done lost them, lost the shrimp season, lost all that. That's, I mean, I understand that. That happens.
See,
We have good years and bad years. That's happened to be a bad one for us, you know? Say again? Could be. And on down on the bottom, on fire insurance and highway taxes, or whatever it is, how come it is zero? What? They went down to nothing in 18 and 19, and then like
Insurance
19,
rebate.
you got budget $1,000.
Fire insurance rebate. Fire insurance rebate.
We moved that to a different fund. We put it in a fund by itself.
And where's that at?
It's in the fire insurance rebate fund.
So you put it in the fire department budget? Or
Well, no.
what'd you do with it then? I'd like to know.
City.
It went somewhere. So that's a surprise? Happy birthday?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the amount? Even though it's going, what's
It's
the
like,
amount?
it's 240,000, but it's in the fire insurance rebate fund. We separated it from the general fund.
All right, so last year it was in this general fund, and you've taken it out of the general fund and put it
It
in
wasn't last year, but the year before it was.
the year before? Okay.
Real, actual? What's the actual? Yeah.
You know, her. You'll play. Relax a little bit. You don't look like Mike.
You need to relax.
I'll come back to you.
Oh, yeah,
Mr.
go
Tisdale?
ahead.
Yes, as Paul Harvey would say, page 2.
The rest of the story.
Okay. So on page 2, these look like grants. Is that pretty much it? And I'm thinking under the 2020 budget, you see a couple of things listed. These are things we know we're going to get, I would assume. And then everything else is blank in that column because I'm assuming we don't know what grants we're going to get. All right. So when I noted earlier on the first page that the revenue from what was budgeted this year, current year, to this next year was up $169,000, I'm thinking, all right, at least we didn't lose money. But then I turned the page to page 2. And you can see at the bottom of that page, it tells you the current year revenue budget and grants, $925,000. This next year, we're budgeting $436,000. We're down $500,000, but that's because we don't know which grants, some of these other grants, whether we're going to receive them or not, right?
We don't, Dr. Tisdale, and the thing about it is, when those grants come in, they have an offsetting expense. It's already included. So when you book it into the budget, you're booking a revenue, but you're booking an offsetting expense. So it's not like you get to use that grant money for anything other than.
Exactly. Those are the proverbial strings we hear about that are attached to grants, federal or state. All right, page 3. All right, on page 3, recreation fees historically, $177,000, $138,000, $146,000. This year, $175,000. Looking at only $145,000, so you're looking at a drop. That's account number 4510, the top line on registration fees. So was either this current year was a good year, relatively speaking, and this next year we're going back to about where we were, or what accounts maybe for that drop in revenue?
You can see between 2018 and 2019, we, in the current year budget, we guessed it was going to go up, and it hasn't.
Right.
So we're
Dropping back
down to where we
you.
think is a safe
Okay,
number.
Thank you. ID fees. We budgeted 5,000. We hadn't gotten any, and we're going to drop our estimate.
That's another one that we have to guess at.
Okay.
I have no idea what's coming.
We don't have anything currently.
Who's being ID'd? we need to ID more of them. That's what we.
That's police department.
Okay. All right, then we go down to solid waste user charge. That's in account number 4554.
I'm glad you're asking about this one.
Well,
Why is it
I've
dropping off?
decided I don't want to ask that question.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, you can see in 2018, we run 2.2 million.
Yeah.
In 2019, year-to-date, we're only sitting at 1.5 million. And it's going to be a stretch to get to 2.3 with 3 months to go. What you're seeing there is the impact of the people that are not paying for their trash. Our collections are down, and we're trying to do something about that, but there are hundreds of people in this city not paying for their trash, and we're trying to correct that by picking people's cans up and writing them letters and doing whatever we can. But so we forecasted a smaller number, 2.2 million next
Gotcha.
year.
Okay, and I figured that's what it was, because I know we're diligently trying to get those cans back from folks who aren't paying for them.
Operation Can Snatch. That's what we call it.
That was Mike Leonard, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So when you look at basically the current year budget revenue and what we're estimating for next year, we're down about 100,000 there. And again, this is just an estimate, planning device. Court fines, bond forfeiture. I'm looking historically. Boy, 2016 was a good year.
Yes.
At over $1 million, and next year we're looking to drop that to about 550,000, and we'll be lucky, I'm thinking, to make probably 450,000 this year, huh?
Well, that's when that lawsuit came into play, and it changed the whole revenue structure.
that ACLU.
Yes.
We are officially out of that situation now.
Well, that agreement now has lapsed, and I'm assuming, of course, they can always come over, anytime and beat you over the head again in federal court, but it would be great. One thing that caught my attention was when it was announced that it was a model program, I wondered if we had overcompensated for what was being required to comply. So my hope would be that we could streamline and maybe see some savings there, if at all possible.
Well, if I remember what the chief told me, there was a time in this state where we could, if somebody didn't pay their fines, and there was an open warrant, that we could actually have their driver's license pulled, and that's not allowed anymore.
Right, that's what I understand. I mean,
But it's
people
just
count
making
on
it
transfer.
harder and harder for us to collect.
Right. Well, and I mean, it makes sense, but it's also a pain. It's one less source of leverage you have. People need a vehicle to get to work in order to pay whatever. Okay, but all that being said, we're estimating for total fines and forfeitures next year, roughly 590,000, 600,000. I guess that's as good a number as any at the moment. When you look at public facilities, parks and recreation, that's account 4722. We were at 260,000, 265,000, it dropped to 84,000. We're currently at 60,000. Doesn't look like we're going to make that 250,000 number. I'm assuming that's why you backed it down to about 80,000 as you're given the trend there. That'd be accurate?
That'd be accurate.
Okay. Then rent on, let's see, account 4770, that's the next to the last line, rent Magnolia Hotel. We've collected 12,000 to date. We've not,
There was nothing in a budget.
oh, that's correct,
The
okay.
budget for next year is
That
based on
explains
the rent fee of $7,000 a month.
So they're
They are paying.
paying what they're supposed to, and they have, if I remember correctly, they have 3 years, and at that point, they may elect not
buy
to
the
move
place.
forward, right, or move forward, but, I mean, 3 years, they may bail and say, well, thanks, it's been real, things didn't work out.
Same is true of the library, the 3-year.
Over here, okay. All right, and looking at the total rents, that looks to be down an estimated about $300,000. Then on the last page, you've got B-mail ads. And I noticed that we've got, is that B-mail or is that B-news? I remember. That's B-news, okay. So in 2018, the actual revenue was $38,000. In 2019, we're at $77,000. The budget's $180,000. Currently, it doesn't look like we're gonna hit that $180,000, and we're only budgeting $1,000 for this next year. And I don't know what it costs to put out a month, but my question is, because I know that ads are sold for that, obviously just from the way it's styled there, B-mail or B-news ads.
We do know that the budget of $180,000 is a pretty good number for what it takes to put that out for 12 monthly segments. We know that, and we never have believed we were going to collect enough advertising to pay for it. So what we do in this case, in the revenue budget, we budget the anticipated advertising sales, and in the department budgets, we'll budget the anticipated expense, and one won't cover the other.
Well, and that's what I have a question about, because I remember when I think Vincent gave us a blurb on what he was doing to the council.
Some expenses would be used.
Right, and the way I understood it was going to work was several departments have required public notices that we paid for and mailed out. I think we've got the stormwater report. I think we do some other things, and I think there was something in CDBG that were required. There may be other, the water quality report, these kinds of things. So I know if they're selling ads, whatever that generates, but I'm thinking since these departments were funded for those public notices, but no longer do that public notice. I'm going to use the Secretary of State phrase. Is the administration sweeping those advertising budgets from those departments and adding that money to whatever ads are being pulled in? I'm thinking, because that was one of the reasons for offering B News, was you no longer have to do that by departments. That'll be baked in to the B News. Therefore, those departments don't need that funding for that advertising.
Right.
That funding, I would think, should
Was-
go to B
Was moved
News,
out of,
B News.
that's in the department budgets, those amounts have been reduced from community development and from public works and moved into the $180,000 for, which is, we know, the total expense.
Okay.
So, yeah, we swept the expense. We expect, we have, you're asking an expense question. This is a revenue sheet, so we're telling you what the revenue is going to be, the anticipated advertising we're going to sell.
Right. But I have an associated Ken question, and that is, to me, this kind of would work, and I don't think you can do this accounting-wise, but to me, it's very similar to a proprietary account, like Port and Harbor or water and sewer. And because you have money coming in and going out, you're paying. Am I right, Mr. Mayor? I'm not an accountant. But it's very enterprise-like. I like that word. It's quasi-enterprisery. And I would think if we do that, or if we can account for it in a similar manner, then you'd know exactly what you have, what it costs. We pretty much know what it costs to print. And the only thing that would be unknown is if we're sweeping these dollars and moving them out of these departments that used to pay for those public announcements, they're moved into B News, then the difference between whatever that generates and 180,000 is what they have to target for ads and selling ads and anything. I don't know what they sell, but the more ads they sell, as we say in the Deep South, the gooder it is for them. So anyway, it'd be great if the funds could be accounted for in some manner.
You said you didn't know how much they sell, but actually the answer is right there. It's as of year to date, $77,750. That's how much they've sold year to date. Received, yeah.
Right, so when the money was swept from these other departments, how much did that total? All right, so that 53,000 and that 7,000 gives you what? 130,000? All right.
But that's you're sweeping budget and calling it revenue.
Well, I told you, I'm no accountant, but it seems to me if the deal was you sweep that money that they these are tasks they no longer have to perform, and the money they use to perform those tasks is going to go to B News, then
That's why it's in their budget.
That should be a
That's how
starting.
you-
It's
that's how
in
you
the
give them money,
budget,
you
but
put
it's
it in the
not
budget.
but it's not reflected as revenue here on B News.
The revenue's in here.
So the 77,000 represents what? The ad money collected or the money that was swept?
Let me say, let me see.
The ad money. So the money that was swept for all practical purposes still is reflected in some of these other departments and is not reflected?
No, it was taken from the departments last year. It's not in their budget anymore. So Public Works budget was reduced, and the community development budget, that's where the most of it was reduced.
Yeah.
And that money, that budgeted money went in the budget for B News, which is in the department budget for executive, I think.
Okay, so, but what you're telling me is the money that was swept is going to B News. All that's reflected here is the sales of ads,
Correct,
because it's revenue.
correct.
Because the swept money isn't revenue.
Well, if they had.
Swept money is
if they
just
had no
budget.
Right, that's what you
just-
told me. I'm agreeing with you. That's a good thing.
Right.
All right.
That was fun.
So thank you, it was fun. So when all is said and done, you look at that bottom line that says total revenues and our current year budget, 58,994, compared to what we're projecting, 58,595. So we're down 400,000. But that could go either way because we still have roughly another quarter to go.
It could, and we have a chance to adjust that as we learn more, just as we did when we adjusted the gaming tax down between the sheet that I mailed you over the weekend that you got on Friday. Looks very similar to this, but if you go back and look at it, we dropped the gaming number slightly.
Right. Okay.
Based on the results we got on Friday. And we'll do the same, we'll bump it back up again if we have a good July.
So barring something outrageous,
When is my
either
turn?
good or bad, we're looking at basically same amount of revenue that we forecast last year, roughly. We tweaked it a little bit. but
That's our best
That's
estimate.
it. Okay, good job.
Now, Councilman Glavitt did mention that we haven't put any money in here for sale of assets, and I know that the city attorney's got his eye on some assets to sell, so maybe we can put our heads together and come up with an estimated number to put in there.
Telling you, if Ken can ID some more of those casinos maybe that didn't pay whatever.
I think we should recognize that when we sell a property. I mean, there's no,
Unless we have already
No
a beat on one.
Sure. Budget nothing, whatever we get, we get.
it's bonus, and it could go in the next year's budget.
Could go in the B news budget. I'm kidding. Okay. I'm done, Madam President. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Lawrence?
Going back to Paul's question about the B News, did it cost us more than 130,000 to do it? No, did it cost us more than 130? That's what we put into it. So what did it actually cost us to do it?
Yeah, 180.
Because they said it wasn't going to cost us another penny. Whatever they did, they're going to make sure they offset it using the money from it right. So that's why I'm just saying, does it cost us $15,000 a month to do it? Understand that. I'm talking about that. What does it cost us to do it per month? So we 50,000 short. Where's the 50,000 coming from? Huh? Yeah, but you said you only had 130,000. The guy just didn't end up to 180,000, so I was just trying to figure out how we did that, that's all.
In revenues, the ads that they're selling. So just wash it.
Just as long as it don't cost the city anything extra, I mean, that was the idea.
I think it's
It's great publication, everybody likes it. You know, what you gotta do it every month, I really don't know, but that's probably how you can sell a lot of ads. Because you got all these things like the Scholar Pearl's got the back page going to everybody's house every month. That's pretty good advertisement. I don't know what they charge for everything, but those are pretty good deals. Yeah, so. The 2.2 on the water and sewer, the 2,247, $2,247,000, is that actual what we took in? Where'd you get that number from? Is that actually pays for all the water
He's talking trash, right?
and the sewer? Not the garbage cans.
You're talking solid waste charge? That on page 3, solid waste charges?
That's
That-
$15 a head of a household. Is that right? That's what we're charging. That's what the revenue is.
Say again?
Are we looking at the line number 4554, solid waste user charge?
Yeah, that's the 2.247.
See, the trash is in the general fund, whereas the water sewer is in the water sewer fund. This is
So I mean,
just
is
the
that
general
number
fund.
takes care of,
What was the budget for
year before, the full year was 2241, 2,241,000.
$1 million.
For 19, 2.367.
Okay. That's 4,554.
That's right.
Okay, yeah, year-to-date 2.6 right now.
Year-to-date, 1.5.
1.705.
Go to, there to that thing. Well, this is the famous trash can problem we have. This is the trash can problem we have where we're not collecting, we're paying more than we're collecting. So that, we've collected 1.5 million year-to-date. We have a budget of 2.367, and that's to pay our bill for trash. We probably won't get there, we'll probably miss that target unless we can collect some more cans up.
72% of what the revenue is right now. We're 3 months to go.
So the actual expenses, is it going to be 2.2 million? What it actually costs us to do that?
Actually costs us $15 per household, whatever was the number that we adjusted.
Cost, that's,
I know you're talking about the trash can, that's a 1433 or whatever it is, and you gotta find 100 trash cans to get our money back.
right.
The 11,000 hooked, I mean, you gotta find another 100 trash cans. And, going back to the ACLU, this court's fine, Pete, I'm gonna ask you a question, Pete, can we sue them? They owe us $550,000, can we sue them?
We'll put that
They're the
on,
ones who created this problem.
We'll
I
put
don't
it
know where they
on.
get all the strength from. We charge them way more money for the court system collecting half what we used to collect.
we're presently redoing our court procedures to allow the judges to do things within the law that their hands were a little bit tied on, and then we're having a sit down with the judges, letting them know what they can and can't do. And, but that's part of the problem is, it's not just the fact, I mean, when you could lock somebody up, they tend to find the money faster, but it's also the state doing away with that revoking people's driver's license. That was always another way that people would pay. And that's the state that kind of did away with that. So that's hurt on collections. On the good side of that, they did pass a law that judgments that you have for fines, we can attach people's state tax refunds, and that's going in place this year. So that should help on collections overall.
So you
A
have
lot of these, we have fines, we have judgments, and we have amounts against somebody, but then it's going to try to collect the money. It's not just that we haven't collected it. I mean, the fines may be the same, but then they skip town or leave or just refuse to pay, and there's no real enforcement. But the state tax refund is a pretty good enforcement tool, I think. So we're going to work all that into the system.
I want to go back to the first page. I know y'all was supposed to have a meeting with the casinos about the devices. Did y'all work that out? Did y'all change anything? Who's real happy? I know they wasn't happy about it. So did anything happen with the gaming devices? As far as taxing, are you going to change anything or leave it the same? Oh, y'all hadn't decided yet. Yeah, because I mean, that was a big thing, and that's part of this gaming, and I don't know, I mean, I don't know how many devices they got, I don't know if y'all know. We've been actually paid for all the devices in the machine. I mean, that's some big place. So the game, they got to have that listed with them, so you'll have the total amount of the game.
Jerry Creel asked me to make a point to you. On the very first page, under privilege licenses, that's business licenses, that's also where we're putting the fees for short-term rentals.
Say that
We
again?
have short-term rentals, that's where the short-term rental fees go, under privilege licenses. You notice we're sitting at 37,000 year-to-date, and we're forecasting $100,000 next year. So that's the increase that's being forecast there is based on being able to collect a lot of fees for short-term rentals. Just that's an explanation on first page 4110, privilege license, why it goes from 37,000 up to 100. That's what we're anticipating to pick up in short-term rental fees, permits.
What's the number you got? What's the number you said? What was the number on that
The
one?
first page, second group of accounts, 4120.
All right.
No, 4110, privilege license. Well, so most of those we have actually collected this year already. Two.
All right, so the 37,000 are the ones that came in after the fiscal year began or whatever, and the last year ended, correct? Sort of, okay. Ask him.
Why is the amount on that going down each year? We said in 16 it was 116, in 17 it was 118, then last year was 108. And then we're projecting 100 this year? Privilege license? Okay, so we just always project 100? Okay.
Basically, it's just the timing of the billing cycle. You don't send the bills out till September. You're going to collect some before the end of this fiscal year. Most. Okay. Thank you.
Well, that's our story, and we're sticking with it. We will be manipulating this as we get closer and we get information, like if we get the sales tax numbers, and that's good, that actuals, and that gets good news, we'll bump up a little bit there. If we get a good gaming tax numbers for July, we'll have a chance one more time to revise that budget before it's final. We'll continue to look for opportunities for sale of assets and so forth. But no matter what we do, I think we're just working on the margin here. I think we're going to see a budget that's more or less flat, just a very modest increase over 2019.
And then on the second page, you got that $45.50, $40,000. There wasn't anything budgeted last year, and now you got $40,000 for job billing. Exactly what is that? CDBG. For what?
Susan Pickett, who does the CBDG work, is paid, some of her salary is reimbursed to the general fund. That's
So that's
paid
what
out of
40
CBDG funds.
So that's what
So her-
40,000 for? That's part of the salary. So the money comes to us,
Back to us.
then you
We-
pay it out.
Anything you would like to discuss, Nathan? Anything else, Mr. Glavin? Tisdale? Anything else you want to discuss about okay. Deming? Anything else, Mr. Lawrence?
One more thing on the waterfront, one more. The waterfront rent, is that the thing with the casino? Is that, you got it down to 3 million, why did it go down? You got 297, 37, 38, 32. I thought that was a set fee.
Which one are you talking about, George?
4737.
Yeah, that,
Second page.
Tax rebate too.
yeah, that should, I think that should be at least 3.2.
Say again?
That should be at least 3.2 million.
I thought it was a set number, you know?
It shouldn't go down. I agree with you there.
No. So that should actually be
That's a good job.
200,000 more.
200.
And that's what we're trying to get the adjustment. Okay. But I mean, that didn't happen. But I know it shouldn't have went down. Yeah, but the rent is 2.7 million a year, $500,000 for the hotel, so it should be 3.2.
Over the base was split 500,000 three ways, 1/3 of which we got. And that based on GGR.
I mean, that's,
It's not going down.
no. Should be a minimum of 3.2. Okay.
I do have something else I'm thinking of, the TIF funds that we collect. Where is that on which account?
Those go directly to pay for debt. TIF bonds.
Okay, so they go off to pay for the TIF bonds. How do we get that money to actually pay for the work or the project?
Okay, well, when the TIF money comes in, they sell the lot issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then that money we use to pay for the TIF project. The proceeds from that lot issue, TIF bond.
And the sales tax rebate, the line on here, that is for the tourism tax rebate? Is that what that line item is?
Sales tax.
That's all sales tax, including the tourism tax rebate?
MGM. What has it been, 50,000, 53,000? Sales tax rebate part of the sales tax. MGM Park, yeah.
It's not just the stadium, it's anything that's sold that we get a tourism tax rebate. Okay.
Which doesn't transfer to the general fund.
Okay.
What was that? Do we know? 50-ish?
Well, 50 for part of it, probably altogether around 90, maybe 80, 90,000
For a year.
All right, that's it.
Did, on the tax rebate money, you know, we're giving people to 7 years, isn't there 2 or 3 of them coming off this year?
The abatements.
That we should be actually,
Off of the abatement, tax,
I think it comes, supposed to come off in 2019, so 2020 you should have, I think the one down there, on the 8th Street, I think there's 2 of them that's coming off this year. That's been to 7 years. Hello?
None in this year.
Okay. Nothing else to add today? All right, nothing. No other questions, right? Yes.
The Council President, we were scheduled to continue on and do the department budgets, but the mayor has asked to postpone that till next Monday. Give us a little more time to work those budgets.
Okay.
So we'll do department budgets next Monday at a time you set, and then we'll do non-department the following week.
Okay, sounds good. All right, motion to adjourn?
I have a question.
But before we adjourn, could we get these handouts maybe a couple of days before so we can have our questions prepared and everything and save us all a little time?
I'm not apologizing for this one today because there are only 3 numbers different on it than the one I mailed over the weekend, so. But yes, absolutely, we'll get the department stuff out to you because that one's pretty
Thank you.
detailed.
All right, I mean, I think the big takeaway from today is revenue is flat overall. Thank you.
Okay, yes. Same time? Mhm. 3 o'clock next Monday. George says he
I
appreciates you.
appreciate the information. It's good to have this early enough to look at it. Everybody understand what's going on. If you have any other questions, appreciate y'all bringing that to us in a timely manner. Thank y'all.
Well, listen, let me say something before we really adjourn.
I'm trying to be nice, folks. Don't say it.
I'm trying to be nice and responsive, too. So we've got some excitement. Nathan and Dr. Tisdale have met with me, and I'm volunteering my coder services in order to maybe do some really creative things about putting stuff where you can get to in when you wake up early in the morning or late in the morning, you can get to maybe on one of our sites and have this information in a more timely, easy to look at form. So we'll have a little software development session with the budget in mind, especially when it comes to departmental expenses, and the more the merrier. The first 3 get in free. Right? All right. Thank
Okay,
you.
motion to adjourn? Yes.
Motion to recess.
Motion by Mr. Glavin, second by Mr. Lawrence. All in favor? Unanimous votes. Adjourn.